Yes, indeed. The more that we watch and see and hear, the crazier it gets. Welcome into the college basketball coast-to-coast platforms and the aftermath of the Friday night of the Sweet 16 of the 2025 men's NCAA basketball tournament. I am merely the somewhat capable host, TJ Rives. Hello, Jason Powers, my wingman. We're both based in the Tampa Bay area in Florida. I think I heard the yelling and screaming from Houston, Texas, just a little while ago. H-Town represent with a last-second win. They almost gave it away, Jason, against Purdue, but the one seed Houston has survived. The one seed Purdue has come back, the one seed Auburn has come back and beaten Michigan. And the two seeds Michigan State and Tennessee are also victorious on a Friday night. So, Jason, welcome in. A lot of very intriguing stuff, and none more intriguing than the crazy finish we just saw in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I mean, the question's going to be, why is Matt Painter leaving the inbounds man under his own basket unguarded? I mean, to me, that's if you're going to lose, you have to make him throw it on the perimeter, the guy make a jump shot or something, but you cannot give up an uncontested layup because the underneath out of bounds passer is unguarded. I don't understand it.
The give and go layup, and we're going to talk a bunch about it throughout this show. Houston as the one seed beats Purdue 62-60. They'll now play the Tennessee Volunteers for a spot in the Final Four. More on that in a moment. Vince Ferrara, our colleague, our Tampa Bay brother from another mother, he is standing by in Indianapolis. He just witnessed everything that's there tonight, better than you and me talking about it. We're going to let him talk about it in a moment or two. Later on from the ATL, we hope to hook up with DeShaun Tate, Mr. Tate's Take. Love his insight. He was right there for the great Auburn comeback. Down 9, Jason. They come from behind to beat Michigan tonight and make the Elite Eight to play another Big Ten team, Michigan State. So DeShaun was there firsthand at the State Farm Arena in downtown Atlanta. We look forward to talking with him later on in the program. Thank you for finding us, however you've done so, whether you're watching us live on Friday night or Saturday morning or even Saturday afternoon before the Elite Eight games that are going to be played coming on Saturday for Florida and Texas Tech in San Francisco, followed by the Titanic Duke-Alabama game in Newark. Thank you for finding us. Again, we're also not only on video, but we're in podcast form as well, wherever you get podcasts with college basketball coast to coast. We're going to be here through the weekend, through the Elite Eight. We're going to be here next week for the Final Four live in San Antonio. Love all of it. So with all the promos out of the way, again, huge story, huge moment for the Houston Cougars as once again, Houston has won the game. They handled the pro-Purdue crowd. They're on to the Elite Eight. They are seeking a 7th Final Four by virtue of their win, and better than us continuing to chop it up. He was there on location. Hello, Vince Ferrara of the Knoxville radio station, the Sports Animal, the morning host, and also part of the Tennessee Vol radio network. My friend, wow. That's what we're saying. Wow. You're there at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Expound on the wow and the last-second win that Houston had to have.
Wait, can you hear it?
Yeah.
It's crickets. Because the Boil Up Nation quietly left the building, and it makes such a big difference for Sunday. The two biggest fan bases, bye-bye. They're gone in Kentucky and Purdue. Not exactly what the Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce was looking for, I don't think, to have them all take off. But hey, you guys said it. Jason hit it on the head. The inbounder, I thought it was strange. The inbounder unguarded. Oh, by the way, he had 20 points too. Yeah. So maybe they're running some action for him. And man, just beautifully done with the give and go. And Houston controlled the backboards and the paint. Offensive rebounds were huge in their favor. Second chance points, 20-9 Houston. Offensive rebounds, how about 16-7 Houston? Look, that's what they are. It was a grind game, but man, Purdue rallied after they were down 10 at one point. It looked like, hey, they might get run out of this thing, but They rallied late 3, but man, execution big time.
Hey, one thing that we love doing, we did it last night with our colleague Ari Russell. Take us inside that massive football stadium as Purdue's making the comeback. They've got a huge contingent of fans, and then Camden Heidi eventually makes the 3. What was that like just a little while ago as they got the game tied, Vince?
Incredibly loud. It really felt like it was, an enclosed basketball arena. That's how loud it got. It peaked for sure. And there's been loud moments, kind of like our perch is in the back corner. We're on the closed side. We're closer where the court is, not necessarily where the giant curtain is behind that behind the temporary seats. But it's still as open as this is. It was incredibly loud, peaking at that moment, and Purdue fans were in full throw. I think there were more Purdue fans here than Kentucky fans. Tennessee fans, definitely third, and Houston fourth. But that's the way we expected it. You guys talked about it, and that's the way it played out. So it'll be interesting to see the movement on tickets on the secondary market between now and Sunday. And look, Tennessee fans, they're known for getting their hands on tickets late.
Gassing up the car, getting on the interstate tomorrow, boys.
Yeah.
Jason, go ahead. Pick it up with anything for Vince in the building. Go, Jason.
No, just give Purdue credit. They hung in there. When they were down 10, you thought they were in big trouble. They kept making shots. Wren had a really good game in the post. And again, the concern we have with Houston, can they score enough? LJ Cryer, 2 of 12? Uzan saved the day. I mean, Sharp did not shoot the ball great, and Roberts kind of got neutralized. But, boy, that Uzan, career-high 6 3-pointers tonight. He is a good little smooth shooting 2-guard for Houston.
Vince, give me one more thought on the Cougars, having seen them in person. People are wondering, do they have enough depth? Do they have enough size? From what you saw in this first game of the weekend at the regional, can they win the whole thing? Assess Houston. What's your estimation?
Well, obviously, first time I've seen them in person. I do think that they can get stuck offensively, seeing them in person. I think sometimes it seems like they kind of maybe go off script and trying to create a little bit. And that sometimes that worked for them, making some tough shots. Sometimes it didn't. I think this next game with Tennessee, and I know we'll get to the Vols here in a minute, I think it's like looking in the mirror, and I don't know if that's maybe the best thing for Houston, is to see a team that can offensive rebound, that can defend. And I think what Tennessee has developed here as of late is the ability to not get stuck offensively and have some answers. And Chazanier normally is that guy. They're playing the right way. So that to me is what I wonder about a little bit with Houston. But this was, I think, a big hump for them, because them failing to get to the Elite Eight and the Final Four as a 1 seed, that's something that they had done before. They didn't want to be in that position again. Obviously, Kelvin Sampson has been criticized for not getting all the way to the finish line with his team, as good as they've been. But they're really good. They're very similar to Tennessee. I think that's maybe the one difference between the two is they can get stuck maybe a little bit more than Tennessee.
All right, pick it up on that. The Vols get their win tonight, get their revenge. They won the game that mattered with Kentucky. And really, I'm saying this, I have to confess, I was going back and forth with the Michigan State Ole Miss battle and this Tennessee win over Kentucky. It seemed to me Tennessee just kept Kentucky at arm's length much of the night. That was my perception. How and why did they win the third matchup after losing the first two, Vince? What would you say?
Tennessee bossed this game. They did. They did from pretty much the jump. Kentucky barely led. Kentucky led for 32 seconds of the game. Once Tennessee got to double digits, they never looked back on Kentucky. There was times where Kentucky would have, a 4-point run or something like that. But that's kind of what I was referring to before. in the past, Tennessee was so defensive oriented that if they didn't get stops and their shots weren't falling, they didn't have a way to kind of stem the momentum coming from the other direction. Now they just run some action for Chaz Lanier, and he makes a smooth 2-point basket at the elbow or a three, or Ziegler drives and breaks down the defense.
Right.
Like, this Tennessee team isn't perfect, but they're playing their best basketball.
Yes.
Couple things were the difference. One was the way Tennessee defended the three for Kentucky. Kentucky was 12 of 24 in each of their first two meetings, 50%. Tennessee shot 22% from three in those first two meetings, but they took too many of them, and Tennessee wasn't baited into taking too many threes. They drove, they passed side to side. They used both sides of the floor. They spread Kentucky out. Ziegler, Gainey, Lanier, they were able to penetrate and not take too many three-pointers. Tennessee shot 5 of 19 three-pointers. Not a great percentage of them, but you know what? They made a whole bunch of twos, and they dominated in the paint. So that the offensive three-point, not taking too many, and then defending the three. Bray had one made three-pointer, and that was, I think, the very first one in the game for Kentucky. Nothing since. You know what happened? Jemai Meshack happened to him. And Jemai Meshack probably going to be the defensive player of the year. He should be. Him and Zakai Ziegler are both up for that. And Tennessee did one other thing defensively that really threw Kentucky off is we heard from the coaches and the players in the open locker room afterwards is they switched more defensively in this game than they did in previous meetings. And they didn't communicate when they switched last time. They switched this time, and it really threw Kentucky off.
I know you've got to go in a few minutes. I don't want you to miss everything. I don't want them to lock you in where you are and get lost. It's the middle of the night in Indianapolis. Again, Zakai Ziegler in the game, 18 points, 10 assists. Lanier also had 17 in the game. Jason, did you have another question about Tennessee and the win and maybe the matchup with Houston for Vince?
And just on the defensive end, only if I'm right on this, Vince, only 2 games all year Tennessee gave up 50% shooting was to Kentucky in the 2 games. Yeah. I mean, just talk about, again, I think Barnes is we criticize Rick, but he is getting it together. He's got a veteran team. He got the floor general on Ziegler. Just talk about how important Ziegler is in getting the right guys the right shots.
Well, he's now the all-time SEC single-season assist leader. I mean, and he's 4 times on the all-defensive team. Defensive player of the year the last 2 years. It may go to Meshack this year. We'll see. But it's incredible to have 2 elite defenders for that Naismith Defensive Player of the Year. They have 2 of the 4 nationally on one team. So anyone else can talk about, we have a great defense too. To have individual defenders that can take guys out of a game like they can, and then they cover a lot of space whether they switch or get out to 3-point shooters, that they can cover a lot of space and they rebound. It's what they're doing. And look, the boards were a big part of this game. Tennessee out-rebounded Kentucky 34-24, and some of that was just some late rebounds for Kentucky to close that gap. How about 14-7 in offensive rebounds? So part of the defense is them when they're good on the glass and dialed in with the way they defend. They're tough to beat. But I think what's taken Jason Tennessee to another level, and I saw you react to it when I mentioned it earlier, is they're playing their most efficient offense right now. And in the past, Rick Barnes' teams would be elite defensively, but then you'd look at their Ken Pom offensive efficiency, and last year I think they were like in the 50s or something like that. Before that, way behind that, and now they're top 20. Right. And they have a guy in Chaz Lanier that can break slumps for them and stem the momentum from opponents. So they're playing really good ball right now, and looking forward to Sunday because this program has never made it to the Final Four. That's what's at stake. Wow. Meshack and Ziegler very motivated to get this team where the program has never been.
All right, and I know you got to go in a moment or two. Follow Vince at Vince Sports on social media. 99.1 The Sports Animal is the FM sports radio station. He's the morning host. A lot of great content through the Vols Network, through Vince's social media, through the station, etc. His coverage is outstanding from the Tennessee standpoint and everything that's going on this weekend. We plug away for our Tampa brother from another mother. He hustled. He got to Indianapolis. He's there. He's on scene. Where Tennessee has won, Houston has won. The floor is yours. Anything else that we didn't cover that you want to say, including in advance of the Houston game, before that is played on Sunday and before you have to get out of here in the wee hours of the morning, overnight, Friday night into Saturday?
Yeah, a lot of discussion with Zakai Ziegler. Jason brought him up earlier, and he was almost emotional in the postgame because his relationship with Rick Barnes. I mean, this kid was about to give up basketball in the Bronx, and he traveled so much to get to his games. And Rick Barnes saw him, and they believed in him and gave him an opportunity and knew he'd have a chance to compete. He beat out a 5-star in Kennedy Chandler to earn his spot, and he never gave that point guard spot up. So he's got such a special relationship with Rick Barnes. And I thought it was noteworthy, not necessarily from the game, but Rick Barnes was asked yesterday in the media session about rumors of him potentially retiring after this year. I mean, fans, TJ, you might have mentioned this to you, fans have asked us and want us to talk about Rick Barnes' retirement almost as much as the games in the NCAA tournament. That's how big of a topic it is.
Do you buy it? Do you buy it at all? You don't buy it.
And he shut it down. He shut it down. He said, no, I haven't thought about that. He said, God will tell me when it's my time, but I haven't given it any thought. He said, it's not right now. Plans to coach the team next year. He still loves the game. His players appreciate how hard he coaches them, but then how much he loves them as well. And I'll say one other thing about the on the court Tennessee team. I've watched them in the past where they would have a rough practice and then they'd play that way. And this was the case last year. They would yo-yo based on practice. If they'd have a great practice, they would play that way in the game. This year's team is much more flatlined. Like, they didn't have as many, wavering differences in how they would practice, and they've been more consistent in games. And I think in a weird way, this team does not play as tight on the offensive end like I've always thought that they have in the past. Like, I'm going to make a mistake and I'm going to get yanked, and I'm just worrying about where I'm supposed to be as opposed to playing basketball. This team and Rick Barnes has adjusted to today's basketball. So and it's a shorter rotation, so guys aren't afraid of getting yanked. They play looser. They're playing inside out, which is the best recipe for them. And I think it's leading to them continuing to ascend and get better, as opposed to maybe playing their best at one point in a big game earlier this year. Now they're doing it when it counts the most, and they are all about next game. They said we got more to do, and that has been their theme throughout each round of the NCAA tournament. More to do. They haven't over-celebrated at all in any of these 3 wins so far.
Very interesting. Listen, I could go on with you for another few minutes, but I want to make sure you can get out of there because they're doing all the post-game stuff of the Houston-Purdue game, and Vince is there in downtown Indianapolis late night. I don't think anybody's going to bed anytime soon that was inside a Lucas Oil Stadium, whether you're cheering for Tennessee or Houston or you're downtrodden for Kentucky and Purdue. It's going to be a long, fun night in the Circle City. Jason and I were just there a couple of weeks ago working the Horizon League title. Now I was listening. Vince Ferrara is there, and you are gold, brother. You are gold. Thank you publicly for coming on with us in the aftermath of this. Have a blast for the build-up to Sunday afternoon for Houston and Tennessee and a spot in the Final Four. I'm saving you a space in San Antonio. We'll carve you out a space to come stay in the Riverwalk City, in the Alamo City, if the Vols can get there. Stay tuned.
Vince, you ain't going 0 for 2, my brother. You're going to the Final Four. I got Tennessee beating Houston Sunday, and you're going to the Final Four,
Let's
my man.
Hey, by the way, the 25-year-plus voice of the Tennessee Vols, Bob Kessling, is retiring at the end of this year. Get him in the Final Four. Let him do a Final Four game coming up. here, and Vince is part of the Vols Network. We'll see what happens. I know you got to run. Thank you. Great stuff tonight. We'll be watching you online, social media. We'd love to have you back on our platforms. Thank you, Vince Ferrara.
Gold knows gold. You guys are the best. Appreciate you. Have a great night. Great rest of the show.
Pancakes at Mom's Diner next time on me.
Yes, we got to go get some food at Mom's Diner is right. All right, there you go, Vince. We'll see you later. There goes Vince Ferrara from Indianapolis. And again, the SEC, I put this up there a couple of times during the conversation. That is 4 teams now that make it into the Elite 8 from all 4 different brackets, by the way. We knew that we had a guarantee of an SEC team with Tennessee or Kentucky out of the Midwest. Jason, it's been a tremendous conference all year long, and Tennessee's been one of the best teams in it. Auburn has been the best team in it. We can't say that it's a surprise. They're both still alive.
No,
right?
No. I mean, it's that this is a historic year for the SEC. I mean, and give them credit. They're delivering. Their big teams have delivered big when they've had to win. Auburn was a little bit on the ropes today with 10, 11 minutes to go. Then they went on the huge run. In Tennessee, man, they are just a workman-like team. I like what Rick Barnes is doing. They've got enough offense in my view, and I think they're gonna beat Houston on Sunday.
Love it. Again, that's the voice of Jason Powers. If you're only hearing us on the pod, etc. If you're seeing us, thank you. Thank you for hanging in there with us late night, Friday night into Saturday. Perhaps you're seeing us later on Saturday on the college basketball coast-to-coast platforms, whether it be Twitter X, YouTube, Facebook, etc. Look at that. We got a plug right there up on the video screen about how you find the show. We love being with you. We love the breakdown, my friend. We definitely do. How
about since 1979, it's the first time there's no seed or 4 or lower has made the Final 8. 3 1-2 matchups and a 1-3 matchup in the regional final.
That is a stat. We got to go back to Magic and Bird in the 79 championship game, of which the anniversary was 2 nights ago, I believe. Hard to believe that was 46 years ago. That's the last time that it's been this chalky, is what you're saying, with the faves into the Final 4.
Into the Final 8, yes.
Or in the Final 8 to this point. With this many top seeds that are getting it done. Again, we hope to hook up with our colleague DeShaun Tate, who watched his Michigan State Spartans get it done in Atlanta by beating Ole Miss earlier in the night. Quite the battle. And then the late night game. Jason Powers, how much trouble were the Auburn Tigers truly in? They were in a bunch of trouble until the 20-2 run with about 10 minutes remaining. It was 12-0 and eventually 20-2, and they never looked back. Auburn looked the part of a national champion in Atlanta. I'm saying that. What do you say about the Tigers?
I'm right there with a great timeout by Bruce Pearl. You got down 9. He called timeout, and after that timeout, boy, you had Pettiford hit a couple of threes. You had Denver Jones, and you had Janai Broom, and the intensity that they turned it up on the defensive end. How good was Cardwell guarding Vlad Golden and Wolf in the second half? I mean, just one-on-one, just a wide body, did a tremendous job. And, man, that was a championship 5 or 6 minutes, one of the best 5 or 6 minutes I've seen out of a heavyweight team in a long, long time.
Again, Michigan kind of had the tempo where they wanted it, but what we've seen, and they did win the Big Ten tournament, and full disclosure, in every bracket, I had Michigan beating Auburn in this game in the Sweet 16, so I thought they would have a real shot to win it, but in their losses, they're undoing over and over again turnovers, and we saw it time and again not taking care of the ball. I mean, Danny Wolf has been tremendous as the transfer from Yale, the 1-2 punch with Vlad Golden as the big man. But unfortunately, he was an assassin against Michigan in the final 10 minutes of the game. One dumb turnover play after another, about 4 of them late in the game. He wasn't the only reason why they lost. They missed some open looks, but he had some bad turnovers. And honestly, Auburn with Pettiford and Denver Jones just made everything from the outside to pull away. Jason, follow up.
Oh, Pettiford made 2 or 3 just unbelievable off balance contested shots by the Michigan defender. I mean, he was on a heat check there for that 3 or 4 minute spurt. Jones had a couple of big threes on a couple of ball screens up top. And again, that Broom was the force in the first half, and he didn't score as much in the second half. But boy, he intensity wise, and we talked about it last night. that crowd in Atlanta was that was an electric crowd in Atlanta tonight. That was probably 85% Auburn in that building. That was a factor as well. Once that volcano and that snowball going downhill.
We talked about it, that would the teams feed off the crowd if they had the crowd, like Duke in Newark or like Kentucky or Purdue
tonight.
They didn't get it done, but Auburn did seem to feed off that crowd. You saw Cardwell, the big body, kept waving. You saw Broom waving to the crowd as well. Like, give us an inspiration. Broom, tremendous. 20 points, 15 or more rebounds. He was great in this. So credit where it's due to Auburn, who took it from Michigan tonight. They are in the Elite Eight. Again, joining Tennessee, Florida, and Alabama in the Elite Eight. And better than us to continue to go on about it, how about we go to the ATL and our man DeShaun Tate, who is standing by. He's been doing post-game duties in the locker room for On3Sports in the aftermath of the Auburn win. He's now available with us in the State Farm Arena. Hello to Mr. Tate's Take. We love the insight late night Friday into Saturday on college basketball coast to coast. Pick it up, as we were just discussing here about, I love asking this question in the arena. How wild and crazy was it when Auburn went 12-0 and then 20-2 to overtake Michigan and win the game? What was it like in the arena? DeShaun, welcome.
I'll tell you what, and I appreciate you guys for having me. I mean, listen, I remember seeing the Michigan State and Ole Miss, and Michigan State typically travels pretty well, and I'm like, Ole Miss has a good amount of fans here. But then I think what Auburn was bringing in, of course, not everybody had arrived at the arena yet, and I'm like, yeah, this is a different level. And then so it's not only just a lot of people, but it's already a little hectic and chaotic anyways, just because I forget the student section that they have there, but I feel like they brought every single student of the student section out.
The jungle,
right. Yeah. Yes. And that's a crazy place to play at, and not very many wins you get there, at least not under Bruce Pearl's belt. But no, it was definitely rocking, and especially in the second half. The first half, obviously they didn't play their best brand of basketball or what have you, and I know some of the guys have been kind of talking about what alluded to the second half run that they made, and obviously being able to slam the door in Michigan's face is because there was a reminder at the half that a lot of the vibe and the energy in the field was felt a little bit disrespected, because leading up to the NCAA tournament, there were people that were just talking about they were skating by some of their games, not even winning. Obviously they won, I think lost like 3 out of last 4 or 3 out of last 5 or whatever it was. And then obviously Alabama State gave them a good run for their money in the first half of the very first game. So they were kind of feeling their own little ways about that a little bit, and then definitely felt the need to come out and put on a show in the second half. And to be honest with you, that's exactly what they did.
Just follow up again on what we just touched on. I don't know how much you heard it about Pettiford, the freshman, and Denver Jones. They seemed to make everything during that run. Yeah. What did you perceive from being right there on Auburn making all the big shots? Not just a few, man, all of them. It looked like DeShaun when they had to have it.
And they did. And I think at one point in time on that run, Denver Jones had scored like 10 of the team's points consecutively or something kind of crazy like that. And a lot of times he tends to get a little bit more credit because of his ability to play on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that they're just they got to a point where they're just clicking and maybe just needed a little bit of a wake-up call or a reminder, which I think that they're a little bit lucky, because not oftentimes are you going to be play into this late into the season and then still be able to get a wake-up call and be able to pull away a win on such a significant level. I'm talking about, an advancement to the Elite Eight. Not everybody's going to be Michigan and allow you to do that, but nonetheless, that's what the great teams do. And this isn't, just any old team. This is also the #1 overall seed. Obviously a #1 seed, and arguably or inarguably, I know people in Durham are going to feel their own way about it, but this Auburn team has been the best team in the country all year long, and they've got some big time wins. I mean, they've beaten Houston. They've they've kind of gotten into a couple scuffles with each other, if I'm not mistaken. On some
Duke fans will
airplanes on the
point out
way.
that Duke got them in the head-to-head matchup with Auburn. Duke fans would point that out if they were here.
And that and that they will. And so, Auburn has looked like a really good basketball team, obviously, and got some size to go with it. I knew that they had some guys that were big. I'm not sure if I knew that they had some guys that were that size. And listen, they're loose. I just came out of that locker room and I was in it yesterday after the shoot around in practice. They're loose. Maybe a little bit too loose to my liking sometimes, just because it kind of gives that vibe and feel like they're not taking things all the way serious. Nonetheless, if there's a team that can afford to do that, it's them. They're a confident group, and that's how they play. And a lot of it, honestly, probably is an extension of the coach.
Yep, and he's loose. They were chanting SEC on the CBS interview with Tracy Wolfson after it was over with. Jason Powers weigh in here with DeShaun Tate, who's put in a long night in Atlanta. We're going to let him get out of here in a couple of minutes.
It's all under here. You can see
understand whether it's a question about the Auburn win or he wants to talk about Sparty and the win over Ole Miss. Whatever you prefer, Jason, team up.
Let's do Sparty. I did not get to watch this game in its totality, so a sense of kind of a meat grinder kind of game with Ole Miss and Sparty tonight. I was impressed at the end. Michigan State made all the free throws at the end that they needed to make. And just give us a little synopsis of just the grind it out. Beard and Izzo have played each other before in this tournament. Just give us a little synopsis of just the meat grinder that this game was.
No, you mentioned it, and that's what hit it right on the head. I mean, that's ultimately what Michigan State, how they won the game. It was a grinder, and that's kind of what they're used to. And, that's been the makeup of Tom Izzo's teams every time he gets to a point where he gets to this point. There were definitely some concerns with, Purdue from three, and of course, Michigan State being one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country. And of course, they've, turned the ball over like crazy at the very beginning. So it was just a matter of needing to settle in. I think that they really believed that once they got to a point where I think they were down 7 or something, can't remember exact number, going into the half, they felt very, fortunate, to be only down that much, considering the fact that they hadn't been playing very well. And so, another thing, Jace Richardson, who didn't have a very good performance the last game against New Mexico in the second round, kind of, alluded to it in the post-game press conference, and he kind of felt like he let his guys down a little bit and that he needed to make up for that, and they were fortunate and lucky to be able to win that game in advance. So he felt the need to put on a show, and that's what he did on tonight too. So, I mean, listen, Michigan State hasn't played a phenomenal brand of basketball for these first 3 games of this NCAA tournament, nor shot the ball extremely well, and they're still finding a way to win basketball games. So is the best yet still ahead for them? I don't know, because they have a really tall task, pun intended, with Auburn coming up. But listen, it's the best for 40 minutes. And I'll tell you what else. I meant to mention this to you, TJ, and please forgive me for getting long-winded. This is so similar. And I'm not saying this team is going to do this or this team isn't. This reminds me so much of 2019. And why? Because in 2019, Duke had a freshman, 2019 and this year, who are considered to be generational talents. And in 2019 year and this year, Michigan State beat Richard Pitino in the second round, that Minnesota team at that time. In 2019 and this year, Texas Tech was a number 3 seed. And obviously, as you know, they go on to the Final Four and beat Michigan State there. And then last but certainly not least, in 2019 and in this year, Kansas was the overall. Kansas came into the season ranked number 1 preseason in the country and ended up losing in the first weekend. So, what does any of that mean? Probably not a whole lot.
Well, we know
the fact that I stay up late and study a lot.
That's okay. We know this. The coach is the same coach. We see that on the screen on college basketball coast to coast. And he took down with his team Cassius Winston, am I right? Who else was on that team in 2019, Mr. Sparty? They took down Zion Williamson, who you're talking about, and Duke. And now Michigan State's got a chance to take out the prohibitive number 1 team coming in here again to get to the Final Four. And ironically, Bruce Pearl in 2019 had Auburn in that Final Four.
Well.
And made it with Auburn in 2019.
Made it with Auburn,
So there's a lot of 2019 tinge to this whole thing.
Can Michigan State compete on the interior? Are they going to have major problems with Cardwell and Broom on the interior. Michigan State does not have a big man that doesn't seem to be great, elite, decent. Are they going to be able to compete there?
Yeah, I think I mean, I don't even know if Shaquille O'Neal can match up with these guys that Auburn is going to be rolling out there. So, no, I mean, in terms of compete, I mean, the one thing that Michigan State has going for themselves, while they don't necessarily have the size advantage, they're one of the best teams in the country in terms of pace. And, every time, one thing Auburn is going to have to get used to is hearing the sound of that horn. And then it's like a never-ending revolving door of fresh legs that Michigan State can check into the game. I think if Michigan State has a chance at winning a game such as this one, besides the fact that the ball has to go in the basket from the perimeter because of Auburn's size, but even more so, regardless who's shooting the ball at the rim, that ball needs to come off long so that Michigan State's quicker guards can get out in transition in some of those outlet passes. So I think they got the guys that eat enough beef and broccoli to be able to bang down there and maybe draw some fouls and things like that. As far as on the offensive side, probably not. But if in the event what they say that this tournament is so predicated, the success of the tournament is so predicated based on guards, I think it's going to set up for a very interesting Elite Eight on Sunday in Atlanta.
All right, we're going to let DeShaun Tate get out of here in just a second, but we got one more fun one. Those that are short-term invested in these things, they get very interested at the end of close games on what's the spread, what's the total, etc. All right, for entertainment purposes only that cared, Michigan State was either a 4, 3.5, something like that point favorite. So much so that when it came to the final seconds, up 6, and Matthew Morrell made the shot from about 35 feet away that smashed the back rim and then just dropped in.
Not a bank shot, not a swish.
The conservative estimate is that it's at least a $50 million losing shot for those that had Michigan State, because most of the public money was on Michigan State laying that number, 4.5, 4, 3.5, all of it out the window on that three-pointer. I mean, Tom Izzo doesn't care about this. Spartan fan doesn't care about this, but there are a whole lot of people financially that care about that three that went in at the end of the game. I just thought I would. DeShaun, you were in the building for what was potentially at least a $50 million or more three-pointer by Ole Miss at the end of the game. We may have lost DeShaun on the feed. I'm not sure. We'll see if he pops back in. But Jason Powers, it was not an insignificant moment.
No, I mean, I texted you immediately after. I thought $10 million, but if $50 million is the estimate, I mean, that can you imagine the people in the Vegas sports books tonight in the draft? We've been in a couple of casinos in the last couple of weeks, Atlantic City, Vegas. There were some screams of joy and pain.
Oh, yeah. 73% is the number I saw aggregated. 73% of the money on Michigan State laying the number for what it's worth at the very end. So the sports books, the humongous casinos that you see, they were all cheering wildly privately as the evil odds makers when that shot went in, because most of the money was not on Ole Miss in that moment. But Michigan State nonetheless wins the game tonight. I think DeShaun has departed. DeShaun, great stuff. Follow him at Tate's Take Hoops, by the way, out of Atlanta. DeShaun will be with us at the Final Four as well in San Antonio. We appreciate his extra effort to hang with us. So, Jason, let's go back and cover a couple of things that we've already talked about. We got a lot of people that have just tuned in maybe in the last 10 or 15 minutes, back to the crazy finish of the Houston-Purdue game and your thoughts again on the give and go where Milos Uzan, the Oklahoma transfer to Kelvin Sampson's program at Houston, is the hero. He made the pass, got it back with no one guarding him right by the basket and laid it in. Inexplicable, indefensible, really. There was no defense on him. How is that possible on the baseline?
I don't.
He gets the win. Follow up.
And what was weird is if you saw the replay, it looked like Braden Smith was initially in front of him, and then he immediately ran down the baseline to cover a perimeter guy. 1 second after Uzan took the ball from the official, I mean, you can't do that under the basket. If it's on the perimeter, you could potentially justify doing that because you're trying to double team an inbounds, but you cannot do it under the basket where the amount of space he had, Uzan, there wasn't a guy within 6 feet of him when he got the ball. Yep. Under the basket, it was an uncontested layup.
Easy bucket, great diagram play. Houston was ready with the give and go and got it done. And by the way, it is the 35th anniversary. We talked about the 1990 tournament is such an amazing tournament for so many different reasons. We talked Loyola Marymount last night and the heartwarming story with Bo Kimball and Jeff Fryer and Paul Westhead, the coach, after the death of their teammate Hank Gathers. That's the 1990 tournament. They scored 144 points on Michigan.
And made 23 pointers, by the way.
21 threes. And Alabama broke that record last night. How about 35 years almost to the day of Christian Laettner's first buzzer beater, his freshman year at
Calhoun in UConn.
Against Calhoun and UConn, the give and go on the sideline at the Meadowlands in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Yep. He's the inbounder, passes, gets it back, takes a quick bounce and shoots with no time left and wins the game over UConn. That was 35 years ago earlier this week. Tonight, the give and go for Houston lives 35 years later against Purdue. And as our colleague Vince Ferrara said, you've never seen 18 to 20,000 fans of one team, Purdue, file out so quietly in your life after that moment in Lucas Oil Stadium tonight. What a moment for Houston. Kelvin Sampson trying to get them back into the Final Four for the second time in his Houston tenure. They are looking for their 7th Final Four if they can get it against Tennessee. Any thought on the Tennessee-Houston matchup from you real quick before we're departing here in a few moments?
I think it's going to be a defensive kind of game, but I think Tennessee has enough offense. I think, again, I worry more about Houston going into the drought than I do Tennessee. I think Zakai Ziegler is going to be a factor. I don't know if Sharp and Cryer can stay in front of Ziegler. I think that quickness of Ziegler is going to be a factor. And again, you got Chase Lanier, who we know is a bona fide All-American kind of guy. Can Houston can Uzan repeat the performance? Can Cryer wake up? Again, he shot 2 for 12 tonight. Give Kelvin Sampson credit. He kept him in the game, and Cryer hit a big 3 late. That helped them. But again, I worry about Houston's ability. But again, 2 physical bullies on the end of the block kind of teams, man. Both these teams like to play defense, and Vince made a great point about the defensive glass. If Tennessee can play even with Houston on the defensive glass, I think they got a great chance to win. I think Tennessee wins the game Sunday.
Wow. All right. By the way, we should also mention that we're brought to you in part by our sponsor, Ticket Smarter, and the Ticket Smarter mobile app. You're going to get the best prices on the secondary market at all these different regional sites for the men's tournament, whether it's Newark for the Duke-Alabama game, all the way out in San Francisco for the first game up tomorrow. That's Florida and Texas Tech, or in Atlanta for Auburn and Michigan State now, or Indianapolis. They weren't expecting it to be neither Purdue nor Kentucky, but that is the case. Then again, it's the chalk. It's the favorites, Houston and Tennessee. Get your tickets with Ticket Smarter, the Ticket Smarter mobile app, and you know you're going to be paying a premium right now. Take $20 off your order of $300 or more. Our code is COAST20. COAST20 saves you $30 or $20 off an order of $300 or more. Best prices on the secondary market on the Ticket Smarter mobile app. Sign up. It'll take you 2 or 3 minutes to sign up and make a purchase. Use that code COAST20 as much as you want. All the way through the Final Four in San Antonio.
Baseball season, NBA playoffs,
yes,
whatever.
All of it.
Hockey playoffs.
That code is good over and over and over again. COAST20 for $20 off your order with Ticket Smarter. Get in the game. Think smarter. Ticket Smarter and the Ticket Smarter mobile app. Back to the matchups as we look ahead.
Who do you like tomorrow?
Let's talk a little bit about that and the games for Saturday. Florida and Texas Tech up first. Gators obviously favored here as the SEC tournament champs. Texas Tech undermanned. Chase McMillan with the oblique injury. Not expected to play. Still, they gutted it out. JT Toppin in the middle. I like Florida in a narrow one. Maybe we're accused of Sunshine State bias. Are you going along with that? Or maybe do you like the Big 12 here to flex with Texas Tech?
Texas Tech can score now. They got good players. Williams, you got the point guard's pretty good, but I worry about their depth because Florida can run out 8, 9, 10 guys that are quality big men. They got quality backups at the guard spot. I think Florida's unselfishness. They were so unselfish the other night. Find the open guy. I think Clayton, I think Richard, I think Elijah Martin are going to be the difference here. Clayton didn't have a huge game. He didn't have to have a huge game the other night. And the inside power, I think, of Florida will wear down Texas Tech. I think Florida's going to the Final Four. Todd Golden, where he used to coach in San Francisco. I think Florida's cutting down the nets in the West region. I think they're going to win the game 8 to 10 points in the end. I think Texas Tech will play good. I know you like Grant McCaslin a lot at Texas Tech, the coach. This guy is on the rise as far as a program, and give him credit. They gutted it out the other night. They had no business probably winning that game against Arkansas down 10 with 3.5 minutes to go or whatever it was. But boy, I think Florida got a great draw, and I think they're going to the Final Four.
Credit where it is due on the comeback, but yeah, Arkansas also collapsed big time, and Texas Tech still alive. Again, that's the first game up just after 3 Pacific time, just after 6 Eastern time on Saturday. Florida looking to be in the Final Four, as you see on the screen, for the first time in 11 years. Texas Tech was there with Chris Beard and the Raider Power back in 2019 in Minnesota. So stay tuned for that one. And then we get Duke and Alabama as we look towards Sunday. Again, Alabama with the record 25 threes in the Sweet 16 win over Auburn. You have to believe that regresses some. How much does it regress, Jason Powers, in the matchup with the Duke Blue Devils for a spot in the Final Four?
I think Alabama's going to have to make 12 to 14 threes tomorrow night to have a chance. I think, the balance of Duke, the inside-outside game, Flag, he played a brilliant game the other night, passing the ball, rebounding, like a Larry Bird kind of game, and just 30 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. He controlled the game from start to finish on the offensive end, and I worry about Alabama's ability to stop Duke on the defensive side of the ball. We know they're not a very good defensive team. Maluach is a tremendous rim runner on those lobs. When Flag gets double teamed, he is finding the open guys. If Proctor can make a couple shots to go along with what Flag's doing, I think Alabama's going to have a tough time. And we know Duke can play defense. They're not afraid to defend. Again, I think Alabama's going to have to make 12 to 15 threes tomorrow night to have a chance.
Again, for Duke, they seek getting back into the Final Four here for the first time in 3 years. They were there in New Orleans, and North Carolina KO'd them in Coach K's final game in the Big Easy in the Superdome. I was right there for that.
What was the stat the other night? 51 threes and like 14 two-point shots for Alabama?
We talked about it, yes. 51 three-point attempts, 15 two-point field goal attempts in the Thursday night game with BYU. They didn't have to have the two-point attempt in that matchup. Meantime, Duke got 100 themselves in their win over Arizona, the 193 victory on that. Again, Alabama in the Final Four a year ago. Nate Oates looking better and better and better as that
rock star.
Oh, there is no doubt. And he signed a lucrative contract extension a year ago. Might even get another one if they get in another Final Four for this matchup. But I think what it comes back down to is, again, this guy, Cooper Flag. I don't think he lets Duke lose ultimately, no matter if it is a high-scoring shootout or if it's a 1 or 2 possession game down the stretch, whatever the score is. I think that guy is the difference ultimately in that matchup with Alabama. I think we pretty well covered everything tonight. Anything else that we left out there about Houston and Tennessee, Auburn and Michigan State advancing for Sunday? That's coming Sunday in both Indianapolis and Atlanta. Anything else, Jason Powers, before we close it up?
I think we have covered it all, and give a shout out to our guy Chris Stewart going for a back-to-back Final Four appearance for the Tide Radio Network.
Yeah, we shout out to him. We shout out to our friend Sean Kelly, who we love, who's in his third year as the voice of the Florida Gators. He may get a chance to call a Final Four. Remember, Florida went back-to-back in 06 and 07. Duke went back-to-back in 91 and 92. Now the UConn, the last 2 years, beaten by Florida in this instance, but it is interesting that Florida and Duke are both still alive here for a chance to be in the Final Four. So much symmetry to 2019 as well, where Tom Izzo and Michigan State were there. Texas Tech as a program was there. Bruce Pearl and Auburn were there. And ultimately it was won by Virginia. But as DeShaun Tate mentioned, Duke never got there with Zion Williamson because Michigan State beat them in the Elite Eight game in Washington, D.C.
And for our Southeastern fans, our wrestling fans from the Southeast from back in the day, are we going to have the 4 horsemen from the SEC all make the Final Four?
Wow.
Like the Nature Boy and company?
Walk the aisle in style, SEC. They do have a chance. It's never been done before. The only comparable is the 85 Final Four 40 years ago, where the Big East had 3 teams. That was Georgetown, St. John's, Villanova. Pop quiz, Jason Powers. Who was the 4th team in that Final Four in 1985?
I believe that was your alma mater.
That was the Memphis. Look at me pull the hat out. The Memphis State Tigers, now the Memphis Tigers.
Is that William Bedford?
That's William Bedford. That's Andre Turner, who's on the coaching staff now with Penny Hardaway, the little general, the guard.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that kept it from being 4 Big East teams, maybe. A Syracuse, a Boston College, whomever else.
Was that Larry Finch?
Larry Finch as the assistant coach. Dana Kirk as the head coach.
Kirk was the head coach.
Memphis losing to Villanova in the semifinal game. Georgetown clobbered St. John's in the semifinal game, and then Villanova played the perfect game to beat Georgetown. Rupp Arena, Lexington, Kentucky.
Harold Jensen.
Yeah, Harold Jensen big. Gary McLean. Rolly Massimino.
McLean, Ed Pinckney.
Listen to you rattling off the names. Patrick
Raleigh on the sidelines with the pasta.
John Thompson with the towel on the shoulder. All of that's the 85 Final Four where 3 Big East teams were. Are we going to get 3 in the SEC to go into the Final Four? Or are we going to get 4? They got 1 in each bracket. Stay tuned.
In my bracket, I got Tennessee, Florida, Auburn. And Bruce Pearl was flexing pretty hard tonight on CBS post
for the SEC. Yeah, there's no doubt. Houston might have something to say about that with Tennessee for a spot in the Final Four. That's on Sunday. Again, Florida, Texas Tech up first in San Francisco. Duke, Alabama's the nightcap in Newark. I was a bit surprised, one more moment or two here on college basketball coast to coast, that the Thursday night Duke, Arizona late game did not do better than almost 7 million people watching, right at 7 million watching, not insignificant. Yeah. I thought that would be 10 million or more. And it might have been more watching in the final hour of the game. But on average, it was about 7 million watching. This game Saturday night with Alabama should easily be 8 or 9 million and maybe 10 million or more.
And you will get a big Michigan State Auburn rating on Sunday, too.
And stay tuned. That one is the late game. We keep talking about this. That's the late game of the 2 on CBS and just after 5 Eastern time, right before 60 minutes. That game will easily have 10 million, maybe 12 million or more. It's not Duke in the Sunday game, but Michigan State Auburn should do very well with the Big Ten markets like Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, the SEC markets helping out. I think the Northeast will care as well. About that. Stay tuned. Anything else? I think we're good on a Friday night into Saturday off the Sweet 16. We'll tee it up for the Elite Eight and be back with a post-game show on Saturday night. Shall we do it, Jason Powers?
For all the people holding the Michigan State ticket tonight, we feel your pain. We feel your pain. Luckily, I had a little Michigan State money line tonight, so it didn't hurt me. So I had money line Michigan State.
You had the Al Davis just win, baby, because if you're just joining us, the three-pointer at the end of the game for Ole Miss that didn't seem significant, down 6. Oh, it was really significant if you had Michigan State laying 4, laying 3.5. Oh, boy.
God. Oh, God.
Oh, boy. And the conservative belief is it was a $50 million shot for all the bettors for Michigan State. Wow. It's crazy that went down. Jason Powers, great job tonight. Thank you, my friend.
You got it.
As always, thank you to Vince Ferrara with us from 99.1 The Sports Animal in Knoxville, Tennessee Alive to play the Houston Cougars. Thanks to DeShaun Tate as well from Tate's Take and On3Sports. He was in Atlanta for the Auburn and Michigan State wins. He joined us as well. Thank you for being with us. Stay locked in on the content on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter X, as well as the podcast feeds. It's college basketball coast to coast. For Jason Powers, I'm TJ Rives. Good night, good morning, early Saturday morning for us in the East. We're back later in the weekend on college basketball coast to coast.